When it comes to stenciling using Ikonart, you can use any water-based paint or ink that you want. However, to get the best results, we often recommend chalk paste for nice, crisp lines. Today, I'm going to be showing you two different ways on how to use chalk paste with Ikonart. First, I'm going to use pre-made chalk paste from Tucker Trade Company to make this sign on metal. Then I'm going to show you how to make your own chalk paste using Coco Chalky powder and make this Dear Santa sign on wood. My name is Fawn and I share tips and tricks on how to make Ikonart stencils and use them. So if you're interested in these kind of videos, please make sure to subscribe below. And if you want to see how I use chalk paste to make both a metal sign and wood sign, keep watching. So this is my design. I got it from So Fontsy, and I'll have it linked down below with a code to be able to download it for free. And I decided to break it up into two different stencils because I'm doing multiple colors and it's just easier. And I do have a tutorial with exactly how I did that, so I will link that below as well. So I just made my stencils and prepped them by cutting a little corner so I know which side is the back, and then I'm ready to begin. And I decided to use blue stencils today because I am doing this on metal. I will be showing it on both metal and wood. The blue do work on wood. A lot of people prefer purple on wood, but you can use the blue. And because I'm doing it on metal, the purple just sticks a little bit too much to the metal. And with chalk paste in general, depending on how thick your chalk paste is, I actually like to use the blue better because it doesn't show the mesh lines as much as the purple. So once I have my stencil applied, I'm ready to add my chalk paste. And I am using Tucker Trade Company chalk paste, the pre-made chalk paste for this sign. And I'm going to be using two colors on this one stencil, both red and black. So you'll be able to see how much harder it is if you keep your artwork on one stencil versus separating it out. So this stencil will be red and black, and then my second stencil is going to be green. So I'm just carefully going around that snowflake and then adding scraping the extra off and putting it back in the container. And I'm using our large black silicone squeegee today. I prefer that for most projects that I do, but we also have these small black squeegees that you can cut to be any size you want. So if you want to use that for small spaces or areas on your stencil, you certainly can. So if you want to add the black with that, you could. And because this design is so large, I'm going to be doing the lift and look method today. All that means is that when I get done with a section, I lift up my stencil and then just set it back down so that I'm just making sure that the chalk paste isn't drying in my stencil, because if it dries in your stencil as you're working, then it can lift up with your stencil and actually dry in those mesh openings. And I don't, of course, want that to happen. So I'm going to speed up this part of the video just so that it's not forever long, but I'm just repeating the process. So I'm adding my chalk paste, squeegeeing it across using my squeegee, and then lifting it up to make sure that the chalk paste doesn't dry. And this is looking really good so far. But as you can see, like I mentioned earlier, it's a lot putzier and more time consuming when you keep all your artwork on one stencil. If I would have put my black artwork on a separate stencil, this whole process would just go a lot faster, but this still works if you don't want to make separate stencils. All right, so now that all my chalk paste is on my stencil, I can just remove my stencil and go wash it out. And I like to wash out my stencils right away, and then it is reusable. And then I'm ready to move on to my second color. So this whole stencil is going to be green. So you'll see it goes a lot quicker when you're just doing one color on a stencil instead of two. One other thing I like about the blue stencils is they are repositionable. So it's really easy to see through the blue stencils and line up your artwork exactly where you want it to be. I'm just making sure that none of my colors are overlapping, and then I'm just gently pushing down. I'm not pushing down too hard on the areas that already have chalk paste underneath because, of course, I don't want that adhesive on the back of my stencil to lift up my chalk paste. And if you are using pre-made chalk paste and it dried out at all, you can just reconstitute it a little bit with distilled water. You do want to use distilled water instead of tap water because of some of the things that are in tap water. It can cause mold. So we just always use distilled water and then just stir it up to be the consistency that you want. If you want it to be a little less thick, then you just keep adding a little bit of water at a time and stirring it up. So that's looking really nice. And now we are ready to stencil. And even though we are doing all one color, I'm still going to use the lift and look method because, of course, I don't want that chalk paste to dry in my stencil. But as you can see, it's just much faster when I don't have to worry about going around other artwork or other stencil openings. It just goes super fast when you have each color on its own stencil. All right, so now that we have all of the color on there, we can just remove our stencil, and that looks really nice, but I think it needs one more touch. So I found this deer ornament at the Dollar Tree, and I just removed the string, and I'm gonna use some command strips to attach it. So of course you could use hot glue, you could also use a magnet. Because this is a metal sign that I reuse for every holiday, I just wipe this design off when I'm done with the holiday and then put a new stencil on it. I don't want the deer to be on there permanent, but if this was a wood sign or something like that, you could certainly hot glue it on. That would work great. But I'm just gonna use these command strips because I have them and it's quick and easy to just attach it that way. All right, now that that sign is done, we are ready for the second sign. And for this sign, I'm actually going to be making my own chalk paste. So to do that, all you need is acrylic paint. This is just Anita's acrylic paint. It's very inexpensive from the craft store. And then Coco's Chalky powder. You can either get this on our website or it's also at Hobby Lobby as well. So I just eyeball it and I mix about a 1-to-1 ratio. And if it's too thin, then I just add more powder. If it's too thick, I add more paint, and I just do it to the consistency I want. And I try to guesstimate how much I'll need. I don't like to make extra and save it. I like to just make how much I need for my project. It's so inexpensive to make it this way. Just really barely costs anything. So I just like to make it per project. I just find that that works best for me. So I'm just mixing it up until I incorporate all of the powder with the paint. And then I'm ready to add my stencil. So I just remove the backer again, of course, and add it to my board. I like to start with a really smooth surface. If your board isn't smooth, you may want to sand it down a little bit first. Even with chalk paste, you don't want it to be super, super rough. But the chalk paste will help it to sit on top of the board rather than seep into all the little cracks of the wood the way that maybe a more liquidy acrylic paint would. The chalk paste helps to avoid that, which is another reason I really like it on wood. And you'll see on this project, I'm actually doing my whole design at once without doing the lift and look method. And that is because I made my chalk paste thinner than the pre-made stuff was. The pre-made stuff was drying in my stencil a lot quicker than this one. So that's another benefit of making your own. You can make it the consistency you want and you don't have to make it quite as thick or dry. So this one, I'm just doing the whole design at once. I'm working fairly quickly and just adding my paint and then removing the excess. And then I can remove my stencil. Gorgeous. All right, now that we have that done, let's just quickly speed through the second stencil. I'm just doing the exact same thing, adding my white. At the very last minute, I decided that I wanted to make the trees green and also the little holly leaves, but I already had put white on the holly leaves. So I tried layering chalk paste over the top of chalk paste on those little leaves, and it didn't work that good. It worked okay. It didn't work great. So I probably wouldn't recommend that, but it did work. It's just not as, of course, green as the trees, but still looks really cute. All right, then for the numbers on this sign, I decided to make my own chalkboard area, but I don't have black chalkboard paint. So I'm just painting the background with black acrylic paint. And then I am going to add 2 layers of clear chalkboard paint over the top to kind of make my own chalkboard. And then once those 2 layers dried, I just added a little clip to the top of the board. I just hot glue that clip on, and that is going to hold a little Santa letter. So like if you have a letter to Santa or a Christmas list for Santa, you could clip it in here. And then just use a piece of chalk or a chalk marker to add your days till Christmas. 32 days till Christmas. So as you can see in the video, there are pros and cons to each method, whether you use pre-made or make your own. I would say that the biggest benefit of using pre-made is going to be that you don't have to mix your own colors. So if there's a specific color that you want or a shade that you want and you're not sure how to mix that ink color, you can buy a pre-made chalk paste and get the exact color that you want. However, because they are pre-made, they do tend to dry out a little bit quicker. Chalk paste does not last indefinitely, of course not. And as you saw in the video, I had to mix these up a little bit, depending on what consistency you like. That is also going to be a benefit of making your own. You can make it exactly how thick or thin you want it. And my favorite thing about making my own chalk paste is that I can make the quantity I want. So I don't have to have a lot of little jars laying around drying out or worrying about using them quick enough. I just make the amount I need for my project and that's it. But not everyone wants to do that, and I totally understand that as well. So that's where the benefit of pre-made is going to come in. But whether you make your own chalk paste or decide to buy pre-made chalk paste, either way, both work great with Ikonart Stencils to give you those nice crisp lines that we're all looking for without bleed. If you have any questions, as always, of course, leave them down in the comments below. See you in the next video.